And we are live. Hello, beautiful people. I'm so excited for this one. Happy Sunday. It's your girl, Janie Bose. I am the host of this channel, and today we're hosting a session of Janie of Canada Live. Today I have an amazing guest for you, but I just wanted to introduce you if you are new to this channel. So on here, we talk about everything regarding studying, working, moving, and living in Canada, achieving your dreams and owning your thrive as a newcomer, and an underrepresented person. Because I truly just believe that underrepresented just means underestimated. And so if you're here for that, if you're here for that, can I get a like and a subscribe right now? Because we're about to have fun for the next couple of minutes. But before I do that, hold on for an intro. So today I have a very special guest. I'm not going to give you too much, except her name is Syreeta Taitt. She's an amazing sales leader over here at Toronto, Canada. We met maybe a year coming up to 2 ago. And when I met her, I was like, sis, like, you're amazing. And I just, like, if you know me, I'm a creeper. So I like creeped her, stalked her, became friends. And I just wanted to share her story because she's lived in so many countries. She's worked so many jobs. And now she's a leader who leads like a team of tech sales folks. But I'm not going to give you too much. I'll bring her on so she can share a little bit more about her story. We could talk about how she became a sales leader in Canada, how she actually helps people get jobs today, what she's saying that has gone wrong and gone right with people's job search. I'm just going to tell you right now, before I bring her on, to have your notepads and your pens, because this is going to be full of nuggets. And it's a chill conversation. We're going to be drinking wine. We're going to be drinking water. So I'll tell you to grab yours too, because we're about to have fun. And without further ado, let's welcome Sarita.
Hey.
Hey. How are you?
Cheers. Thank you for having me.
Cheers. It's my pleasure. So tell the people, tell these people a little bit more about you. Who are you? What do you do? What do you have fun doing? What do you absolutely hate doing? Spill it. Like, we just want to know.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Janie, thanks for having me on this. That intro was, I'm absolutely humbled by that. Thank you so much. And a little bit about myself. Love that. I'll kind of talk through kind of my story, my professional story, as well as obviously my personal story, which I love. From a personal standpoint, like you said, my name is Syreeta. I have lived in Canada for now coming up to 10 years, if I can believe that. Wow. I am still in shock sometimes when I say that.
I say I'm a newcomer. It's been 5 years, and I say I'm going to say for the next 15. So enjoy the 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, one of those things where when you get here, you don't know how long you're going to be here for. You don't know what the success is going to look like. You have no idea. And I think the big thing is connecting with people like you. So thanks so much for having me today. My story. So I'm Jamaican. Born in the UK, actually. I love the gunshots there. Represents, love it. But you know what? Interestingly enough, I spent more of my life in East Africa, in Kenya, before I actually came here. So spent 14 years in Kenya, then another 12 years in Switzerland, and then I came here to Canada. So always being that person to kind of like move around and get an understanding. And I think the big thing was moving to Canada for me was to continue my education here. So I found it very important, as we know, Black families, Black newcomers, immigrants. The big thing is, education and, right? The pressure. You know what it's like, if you're not a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, is that really right? So same idea. So I came here to continue my education, and I did this in hospitality and tourism. So I came here on a student permit, student visa, and then, of course, sorry.
I'm like, same. I came as a student too.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm grateful for, is it gave me, quote unquote, that Canadian experience, right? It gave me the opportunity to learn more about what it's like to live in Canada. Though as a student, it gave me the opportunity to learn more about people, learn about the winters, right? Know more about here. And then I thought to myself, hospitality, what I disliked about it was it didn't give me the opportunity to have my weekends to myself. So I have a young family, and I did hospitality at Ryerson University. And I thought to myself, there's no way I'm going to be able to, be a full-time, obviously, mother of two now, and then also be able to manage, the everyday stresses of being in the hospitality segment. So I decided to go into the tech space, which was definitely a skip and a jump and not easy to get into. But personally, how I did it was I started off in customer service. So, learning more in the service area, giving you the opportunity to learn more about the types of questions customers are asking, what they're looking for. And of course, learning the lingo, right? Because that's the big thing, is the lingo of technology.
Amazing. No, thank you for sharing. And so you started in customer service. And how long did it take you to get into like account executive and now being a sales leader? Like, how did you get in? Like, people want to know. We're just here for the tea, Sarita. Like, honestly, how did you get into like your management role at Salesforce?
Let me tell you, it was not easy. These things are not easy. And I also feel like there's like almost this unwritten playbook that nobody talks about, or that, maybe somebody who's been in the company for years knows, who to talk to, where to talk to, and when to talk to people. And so that for me was the big thing, was figuring out what is this almost invisible playbook that it seems that everybody was aware of, but I had no idea, even to get into Salesforce was a whole conversation, a whole thing, because I knew nobody who worked in the company before I started. But when you get in, you realize that everybody seems to know somebody in the company already. And that's typically how people get in. So making the switch from individual contributor into management took a lot of work. Obviously, making sure that I'm closing sales, making sure I'm excelling in the job already, right? That's table stakes. But that doesn't mean that you're going to get a promotion, right? That does not mean that. The important thing is really the networking piece. And I talk to my team about this a lot. It's results, relationships, and reputation. This was actually from
relationships.
Yes.
So relationships and
reputation. Those three things. Go ahead.
I'm definitely taking note of that. Relationships represent a reputation. Okay.
Absolutely. One of my coworkers actually was the one who filled me in on that. And as soon as he said that, as soon as he told me that, I was like, okay, now I understand more. If relationships are so important, the results are table stakes and relationships are so important, you must network. You may think to yourself, well, I don't have time to network, or I'm already doing the job. Shouldn't my merit be enough? In age, it's not enough. You've got to know, who's making those decisions about the next management role, who are having those conversations without you while you're not in the room. And are they speaking highly of you while you're in the room, right? And having those people who you built a strong relationship with, understand what they're looking for in terms of management, understand what they're looking for in terms of next roles is so important. And so I made sure to build my foundation. I was networking every day. Every day. Any opportunity it took me to do so was a quick phone call, quick coffee chat, quick email, whatever it may be, just to sync with somebody, learn more about somebody, and then take it from there.
And this was at what point in your career? Like, how many years of customer service or how many years of being an account exec did you feel like I needed to be more intentional about my networking and connecting with people? When was that?
So this happened. So I've only gone into management earlier this year. So it was February this year when I
remember that.
Right?
That was February.
We went for drinks. We were celebrating. Remember?
That was February. It felt like last year.
Well, yes, exactly. So I think it was, and that, granted, a lot of people think, oh, February came around, you got your promotion. This took me, I would say, about a year to get into that role. It was a year of networking, a year of conversations, a year of understanding where I needed to get there, putting my feelers out, getting to know what could be a team that I could be managing, right? So it's never the iceberg. Most people see the positive side where everybody is already in the successful moment, The work behind it is the base of the iceberg, right? Underneath the water, the part that nobody sees. It's those conversations, those networking opportunities, those trying to go above and beyond wherever and whenever possible. I found that was very, very helpful to get into this room.
Okay. So I'm going to stay on that track of networking because I know I'm in my own career now as in a leader, and I'm like, it's so busy. Like, work is so busy, but I know that you have to nurture your network, like you said, build that relationship and have a reputation. And so I also see a lot of people ask for requests to network and have coffee chats. So if you think about your own experience and how you went through it and how you actually strategically decided on who you wanted to talk to within and outside the organization. And now as a sales leader, I'm sure you're getting a whole lot of requests from newcomers, people looking to switch their careers, just people in general. And now, so what would you share with me? Concrete examples, because I want people to take note, please, on how people have networked right and how people have connected right, to recruiters and to people managers in just your own experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So the first thing is being intentional with your outreach. You cannot just, mass email or mass message a number of people that you're trying to connect with and think that, you're going to get some sort of feedback or they're going to respond to you. Like you said, I found more and more that I'm getting more and more requests now. And the ones that stand out, I'll give you an example of the ones that are really bad and the ones that are really
let's do it.
The tea, right? Is now over here.
Giving people the tea.
So the really bad ones are the ones that have no, for example, on LinkedIn, right? Because typically I see messages coming in from LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to get into contact with somebody. That is your social platform that's professional. And the ones that I've seen that are really bad are they don't actually put any message in there. It's just, hi, I would like to connect with you. It's the standard one that comes with LinkedIn. You just click and you're clicking to meet that person. Every time I get a request like that, I decline it. Unless I've had a prior conversation with you or I actually know who you are and you're sending me this, I decline it. And I'm pretty sure that any other leader in the space, any other person generally declines these things, right? Who are you? I have no idea who you are.
Say, how are you doing? I'm well. Can I help you?
What do you want from me? I don't understand. So those are the worst ones. So that's why I say to be super intentional about your outreach, because the things that catch my eye the most are people who I know have taken a detective route to find out a bit more about me before they even have a conversation with me, right? They've taken the time to, maybe they showed up at one of the events that I have put on my LinkedIn that I'm going to be there, right? And then I get the chance to actually meet them in person at that opportunity. Or they've done some digging around, my background, a little bit about me. Maybe they know, a bit about what I do sort of in my pastime in my life. And so the message comes across as, hey, Sarita, I noticed I know you're a mom and, maybe the connection is on the mother level. And they say, I also have kids at home and, the struggle is real right now with Corona. That was one that caught me out a lot where I was like, I need to connect.
We actually have to talk about that next. So
yes, we'll definitely jump in on that one because I have a lot to say on that point too. But so I think that I feel that I felt inclined to connect because I connected on a level that was outside of the workplace, outside of the professional side of things. And it was on a very personal level. And, when you think about it, and it's something that I've learned in my years, even just working at Salesforce, I find it's connecting with your customers and consider me as potentially a prospect, potentially a customer. It's the same thing. I would keep that mindset of look, I'm prospecting. The networking portion, networking is the word, but you're actually prospecting. You're looking for your next role. You're trying to find out where you want to be. And you don't necessarily know that already, but the networking portion and the prospecting side of it is where you're going to find out a lot of information that you may not even necessarily know right now.
So thank you for that, because I'm learning networking and taking it as you're finding customers, because it's a project, finding your new job is finding the right customers. And so you have to prospect right. But okay, let's get a little real now, because this is something I know my girlfriends are talking about. I just recently got married and I've been yo, Sarita, tell me about it. Thank you. Because a lot of the reality for a lot of moms right now is, I have these kids at home. I'm trying to still be that boss woman at work. And for people who are just starting a family or getting married, there's that anxiety of, am I going to have to put my career on pause because I want to raise a family? Or am I going to be a negligent mom to be that boss woman at work? So there's always that combating forces to growing your career. But I know you have two amazing kids and I know you're rocking it at work. So when those thoughts and those limiting beliefs about you're going to have to reduce on one to be better at another, how do you handle it? How do you tackle it, being a mom and being a leader at work?
Yeah. And it's one that I continue to battle with. I will tell you that. You know what I mean? I think that the battle never actually ends. You just get a bit stronger as to, what the goals are and how you realize that how they actually are one and the same. These are not separate things. And that's why when I talk to sort of people around work, people talk a lot about work-life integration and a work-life balance. And I consider it more of a work-life integration because at the end of the day, at work, first of all, you're spending more time at work than you are with your actual family. When you add up the days and the hours in the week, and then you compare that to how many you're actually at home, different story. So it's always a constant battle. And I think what has been my solace and what has helped me a lot has been understanding that as I continue to crush it in the professional world, my kids are seeing these things. My kids are seeing this and they are understanding like, look, mom is working really hard for us to provide for us, to help us, to make sure that we have whatever we need to move forward. And what I love is also, for me, my big thing is traveling, and I should have said that at the beginning. I love traveling. I love visiting places. It's been a struggle with COVID, as you can imagine.
We were talking about a trip around February and then COVID hit.
Right? We were supposed to go to Jamaica. Like, I don't understand. I'm still upset about this. But anyways, I digress. The big thing was, understanding that I could provide to my kids opportunity for them to see the world. Right. And if I can do that by working that little bit extra harder to be able to provide for them, then why not? But also on the flip side, as I continue to see successes in the professional side, gives me more ability to take time off and to take the time to spend the time with the kids as they get older, as they need me more, less and less, and I need them more.
So what I say is that as you grow in your professional career, you see more opportunity to actually spend more time with the family.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amen, Jesus. Because sometimes I'm like, bruh, is this possible? Like, what's gonna actually happen? Because like, if this is my life right now, how am I supposed to have kids? So
it will definitely work. So I'll tell you this. It's also the other thing is finding the right company, because there are companies out there that will not necessarily support. It's going to be difficult, and it is what it is. I'll give you another prime example. Actually, when I started at Salesforce, I was already 4.5 months pregnant. They didn't know. I don't really show easily. I don't show until much later. But even when I did finally, 4.5 months pregnant, like I was full on pregnant. Like it was, but in the back of my mind, I also knew that you cannot let your personal goals as well interfere with your professional goals, and vice versa. Right? I think it's very important to understand that they are an integration. They are two in the same.
Full self.
It's your full self. So it's either you're going to hire me, whether I have children or not, whether I have a sick parent to deal with at home, whether I have, I'm unable to get into the office, you name it, whatever it is, the company should be willing to support you because they know and understand and they value who you are as an individual.
So speaking about that, the company supporting you and being able to integrate your personal and professional into you, who you are, the one person that you are. Yeah. I also know that as Black people, it's real that we face different type of work environments or situations in the workplace.
Oh yeah.
Specifically Black women. And the reason I say that is because generally everyone knows about the misogyny and the fact that most systems are made to support the male species, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's also the discrimination and marginalization against Black folks. So a lot of times Black women are facing the double bias of just being a woman and being Black, which a lot of people are like, oh, sappy, sorry. But for me, I see it as a strength. However, that being said, there's been a lot of times when I'm navigating my career, maybe when I was in my master's program and there's 1 out of 2 Black women in the class of almost 70 people, some things will happen. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, is that a microaggression or am I losing my mind? Mm-hmm. What was that? Like, can you share some examples of nuances that Black women typically face in industry, especially tech, because it's not very us, and advice to your younger self on how to navigate those situations? Because I'm sure people are listening as students wanting to get into tech and specifically sales as well, because it doesn't look like us. I know because I did sales. What are those examples of things you face and how you would navigate those situations?
So a couple of examples is what I see a lot, what I continue to see a lot. First of all, chances are you're going to walk in the room, you would likely be the only person of color, and if as a woman, the only woman and Black person or person of color. And I've now found my strength in that. I used to kind of fear away or shy away from it, kind of like try to be smaller in the room, be quiet in the room. And, that was like my MO. I thought to myself, this is how I'm going to get ahead and get forward. If I just like stay quiet, do my job and keep my head down. I now realize as I've grown older that that's not the way. So I'll give you an example of kind of some situations that have happened to me personally. It's walking into a room and being asked, assuming that I'm essentially the personal assistant. So,
oh yes,
can you get me a coffee, please? I take my coffee black with sugar, and I'm just like, You know,
Yeah, asking you to do office housework, and you're like, wait.
it's like, I don't understand. And what exactly, what about me made you assume that? You know, first of all, there are other people in the room. I don't see you asking them to get coffee. So why is it you're asking me that? Another question I come across a lot is, you know, is anybody else coming? You know, is your manager going to be available to help out with this? You know,
No, you just got me. Enjoy my presence.
just me, you know, and trust me, you'll be blown away by the time this meeting is done, you know. And and the thing with that is, you know, I understand that these things are going to continue to happen. It's never going to end, essentially, like at least not in my lifetime. I believe that it's going to be for a while. But what I do know is that we do have power to be able to change the narrative and change the reaction, because that's what we have control over. I have no control over what people say, what people do, etc. But I do have I have full control over my reaction to the situation. And that has been where I've figured out my superpower, essentially, right? Yes, I am the only Black woman in the room. That is amazing, right? Like, they don't understand, you know, the different perspectives that I'm going to be bringing, you know, my lifestyle, my background, all these things that are so different to other people's lifestyles, that any opportunity that I can bring it to the table and talk about it, I will talk about it. And when it comes to like microaggressions or racist situations, or just generally situations that are uncomfortable for most people and for us, I reply with a question. You know, I want to understand more about where this is coming from. Right? Like, let me understand where that person's coming from. Let me get more information, because maybe even if the intent is not there, I want to make sure to call them out, because I don't want the next person after me, the next Black woman after me, you know,
to go through that.
To go through the same thing, right? They shouldn't have to go through this. It's like, now that we've been in this space for long enough, now that we continue to be in this space and we continue to strive in this space and thrive in this space, we need to make it better for the next person coming after us, which are our children. I mean, that's literally the way to look at it.
Yes. No, thank you. So what I'm hearing is speak up for injustice for sure, and frame it as a question, because again, there's a stereotype that a loud Black woman is just an angry Black woman, right? But framing it as a question gives a person an opportunity to reflect on what they've just said and actually ask themselves, challenge themselves to, where did that actually come from? Like, where did I start this belief from? And navigate it that way.
Exactly.
Okay. So with that, though, I would say that there's also the piece about negotiating your self-worth, like, or negotiating for what you're worth. A lot of times women are like, I have 2 years of experience. I think I can do it. We know about the whole men will apply to a job they're not qualified for. Women will want to check all boxes before they qualify, before they apply. So how would you say that women negotiating an offer, negotiating a raise, negotiating to get a senior leadership position, because you did that for a year, like what are the things that we need to put front and center in our minds to actually help with those conversations?
I think the big thing is, what I found really helpful for me was writing things down, right? The little things that you do on the side, you know, your side hustles, your, you know, whatever it may be that you're doing in addition to your everyday work, write it down, because you begin to realize that there is a lot of crossover between the things that you're doing generally and the things that they're looking for potentially in a role, or potentially what could be your next step. So what I started doing was I would start noting a lot of things down, where, you know, let's say I was mentoring or doing a sponsorship program. I would note it down. I never used to talk about it. I never used to, you know, I used to just do it, you know, because it means it's on the side and it's important, right? And it's like, well, why am I not talking more about this? Why am I not telling people about the things that I'm doing? You know, it's important that people don't understand that, you know, this is what I'm doing. The big thing for me also was, you know, realizing how many things do cross over. So, for example, I started the employee resource group within the Canadian office here, Bold Force. Yes, which is the Black Organization for Leadership and Development. And, you know, I was running that group. I've been running it since I founded it, and I've been running it since the beginning, co-president with another colleague of mine. And you know, the realization that I am managing financial budgets for an entire organization. I am managing people. I am leading a team of 12 people right now outside of my everyday job. That was when I was just an individual contributor. I am motivating, championing, you know, those things that they're looking for in leaders, I'm already doing it. And so my mentor, also a note, make sure you have a mentor, make sure you have a sponsor, right? was telling me, why are you not talking about these things? When you go into that interview room, when you're talking to having a coffee chat, where you're networking, make sure to talk about these things. Don't hesitate to big up yourself. I don't know any other way. Don't hesitate. And it's true. As women, typically we don't do that. We don't do that enough. And unfortunately, that comes from growing up, culture, traditions. It's children are to be seen, not heard, especially females. Like, you should just be there, like, saying yes, sir.
I know I was told that a bunch of times, but look at how we turned out. Still not shutting up.
I don't shut up at all. That's the problem. That's not a problem.
Yeah. No, definitely. Thank you for sharing. And on that note about taking things down, like personally, even at work, I created this like Google Slides, like unapologetically. It's called Janie's Accolades. Yes. Because when those limiting beliefs come, I go there, I'm like, oh, I actually closed this deal. Oh, that client said this. I have screenshots there of recommendations, because we forget. And so when you're feeling small right before you go to an interview, if we're having a conversation, like I would just go there and be like, okay, what's going on with my career? What have I done? To get a sense of some of the accolades and those things that I might have forgotten. On my phone, I have a folder on my photos called Big Up You. Like, it's literally called Hype Yourself. It's literally called Hype Yourself. So that point about taking notes, because we forget. And okay, so speaking about careers, there's a bunch of people who are here who are trying to get into tech sales. And there's this feeling right now of we're in a pandemic. There's the COVID is outside. And so people are feeling stuck, like, oh, they can't leave right now because it's uncertain times and they don't want to like mess up and not be in between jobs because they try to leave and that place wasn't stable. There is that. I've heard that a lot through BPTN, through my personal networks. But I also know that a bunch of folks are hiring. So what is your advice for people who are feeling stuck right now, looking for a change, but not quite thinking that this is the time?
Yeah. So I personally think that COVID is going to be either a thrive or survive situation, right? So either you're going to be on the thriving end of things, where you're going to think to yourself, like, look, it's time to make a change. So now is the time to make the change. Or you're just going to sitting back and surviving. Like, the people who are making changes right now, I find, are the people who are seeing the most successes, because companies that are essentially thriving in the moment, that are looking and hiring and looking to grow, they will, if they are growing during a pandemic, if they are growing and thriving during a pandemic, they will continue to grow after the pandemic is over. If right now the company, unfortunately, is not doing so well and things are not doing so well, they may not necessarily be here after the pandemic is, onto its next phase or onto the next stage, because it is what it is. The number of millions of dollars that are being lost, some companies are not going to be able to make it back. And so they have to just move on from there. So I think for me, I think, first of all, finding the right opportunity, right? We just don't jump for anything. I understand that completely. So I understand the worry or the concern behind it. But if you're looking for something, for example, I was pregnant, right? Like, what? Who moves job when they're pregnant? Like, most people don't.
Most people are like, I'm trying to cash in on that maternal leave. Like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Exactly. Most people would have stuck it out in the company they had, waited a little bit, and then where are you? Then you're back from maternity leave. You're with a kid now, and now you're still, learning back your existing role, etc. So I think it's a good opportunity personally to look out there, see who's hiring, get an understanding. Obviously, just don't jump ship straight away, but knowing and understanding the types of companies. And that brings me to the most important point about the type of company that you're choosing. Pandemic or not, if they don't align with like your visions, your values, and what you're looking for in a company, then it's not even a good company now, nor is it a good company during a pandemic, nor will it ever be a good company. So
yeah, especially being like underrepresented, being a newcomer, like personally, my visions and values are always first. Like when I'm going to an interview, there's that chart that says vision and values and alignment. It's like a relationship. Like if we don't have similarities, it's not going to happen. Like I don't care how appealing the job is or the zeros it is. It's going to be paid to go to work as opposed to actually having fun. So that's very important.
Like it's just like dating. Like it's the same notion of dating. You want, and I think the thing is when you're with a company, you also want to know your what. We talked a little bit about self-worth, right? And sometimes, when we're with a company for many, many years, we are not seen or heard enough as we should be. And so we get this assumption, that's when we start having those self-doubts because we're like, oh, this company, I'm so grateful for this company. Great. But if you could have a parallel role or a step up in a role with a much higher base, a much higher benefits, works well for you and aligns better with your values, why would you not jump ship at that point and see what's out there, see what else is there, get an idea of what others in your space are making, what are they doing, how did they get there? And that's also part of the networking, right? It's all tied together. All this stuff that I'm speaking about is all tied together.
Speaking about jumping ships and networking and all of that, we're going to talk about mentorship and sponsorship, but really quickly, there's also a lot of women that I speak to say, like, I don't want to be seen as that person who is just jumping ship, or I'm just not going to stick it out, or I'm not patient. So what have you seen typically is the average duration of someone in a role in a particular company, and what do you advise in that? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that times have changed. That's what I think. So it's funny because when I talk to my dad about roles and I talk to him about like moving companies and stuff like this, and prior to Salesforce, I moved every 2 years. That was like my 2 years was I was like, nope, if I haven't seen what I need to see in the 2 years, then I'm on to the next one.
In the third.
That was it. I was like, I'm not jumping into the third year. So, and he would always have the same feedback from me. He was like, but your resume is now looking like every 2 years, if you're moving somewhere, so which company is going to want to hire you at this point? And my answer is always, but what about me? Like, what about what I'm looking for in a company? It's not only about what the
company's looking for in me.
Yeah, what I'm looking for something. I'm trying to find, when I do find that, I will be there. And I do believe I found it now. Like, I don't plan to leave this company for a while. I'll tell you that. They already know. I already let them know, it is what it is. I'll be here for a time, because I find that I'm comfortable. I'm in a good place, but I'm also being challenged every day. So I'm comfortable in the sense that I know what to do. I know my role. I understand, but I'm challenged every day, and I'm brought to the table of new things happening, things moving really quickly, etc. So for me, I think, yes, I feel like it's almost old school that we think like if our resume reads like every 2 years or every year we're moving to another role. But also on the flip side, for me personally as a hiring manager now, what I see is A, that person is potentially looking for something specific. And B, that person knows their worth. So they know and understand like, hey, like I was looking for something specific. I didn't find it at that company. And so this is where I am. This is what I'm looking for. And that's why
it's okay to share that.
Sorry?
So it's okay to share that, like in the interviews that you're having, to say, I was looking for that in that company. I didn't get that. And that's why I'm looking to move.
Absolutely. And that makes the interview personable as well, because it shows that you know what you're looking for. You understand what you're searching for. And so you know your worth, you know your value. And so this interview that we're having right now is not just you interviewing me. I'm also interviewing you as a company. I also want to know, like, can you level up to my level, right? Not leveling up to the company's level. That's how
I definitely agree. And that's how I look at it too. And it's the point of, you have to always have questions to ask them. Like, you wouldn't go on a date and not ask the other person questions. It's like, so tell me about you. Like, for me, it was always like when I was job searching or like leaving my old company, it was very important to see some Black leaders.
Yeah.
In that company, because for me, it's like, I know I always like to push the glass ceiling and stuff, but it's harder to imagine that can happen if in the whatever years you've been around, especially companies who've been around for a while, not startups. And you tell me in the 15, 20, 30 years you've been around, you've not had one Black person that could lead a team like to a big level. That's a red flag. Yep. So if I'm asking that and you're saying, well, while bringing you on, I'm like, bruh, no. Like, you know what I mean? So it's definitely important to have that. Speaking of our careers, we always hear this dreadful phrase, Canadian experience.
Oh, gosh.
How would you advise my fellow newcomers who have been exceptional in the countries? Like, you live in the UK, you live in Kenya, like you have exceptional international experience. That for a lot of times, newcomers are already feeling like, I'm starting over, which I always say you're not. You're just literally changing track. However, there is the reality that a lot of companies still ask for Canadian experience. Even if they don't ask it directly, they imply it a lot of times, or will just exclude you. Yeah. How would you say folks navigate that situation in interviews and talking about Canadian experience where they do not have one?
Great question. So first and foremost, my big thing is you first and foremost want to make sure that your resume is reading a certain way. That is like the key thing here, because a lot of companies are now using like bots and stuff, so they're actually just searching and scouring, through your resumes, and so they're not actually looking at them until like they've reached 10 in a pack and they put them at the top.
Yeah.
So you want your resume to read, like if you see a job posting and it says, these are the key responsibilities and these are the, the requirements. If your resume doesn't say almost exactly the same thing underneath your like key experiences and what you've done, what you used to do at these other companies, forget about it, right? So I that for me was one thing that stood out for me, because I started reading more about resumes. And funnily enough, one of my girlfriends who's sitting in the room today, actually, she was the one that gave me some great insight into this, because it was like that insight into like, okay, so if the job is looking for this, but my resume doesn't say that exactly, but it's similar, right? But, when I get in the interview room, I should be able to talk through it. It's like, no, let's make sure that there's no questions asked about this resume. If it's, requirements are proficient in Microsoft Word, let's just give that for example. If my resume doesn't say proficient in Microsoft Word, then what am I doing trying to apply for this role, right? Like, just mimic their language. And that's also similar to when you get into a customer facing role anyways, you want to mimic the language of your customer. When they're talking to you, it also shows that you're listening, that you're saying something similarly to what they've said and you're sending it back to them. That's a great way to do that. So I would start from the resume, make sure that it's like mimicking and looking similar to what their job postings are and what they're looking for, etc. And then the second thing is, once you get into the room, yes, chances are maybe they might ask the question of like, okay, so what about Canadian specific experience? Or like, where's this company? Like I used to actually not even put the location of my company. Like I put the company name and I didn't actually put the location. That was how I got around a lot of like getting into the interview room. I was just like, this is the time, this is the place, and that's it. Not actually saying
like, locations on my resume either, because it doesn't matter. It's like, did I do the job? Exactly. So take out that location stuff on your resume. No one doesn't like,
they don't know about like some random place in Jamaica that I worked at or some like random place in Kenya. They're just like, what is this place? It doesn't mean anything. But they're looking at the competencies. What did you do at this organization and what were you doing and how do you handle those situations? So whenever I got asked that kind of question where they kind of meander around, like they don't actually say it, but because they can't.
Yeah, but it's illegal.
They kind of say it. They kind of, I always answer the question very diplomatically, in the sense that my experience is international and our customers, your customers, whoever maybe is on the other end, are international. And so my ability to speak to people from different backgrounds, different, variety of backgrounds, variety of cultures, varieties of educations, etc., is actually where I find the strength in knowing that I've had international experience. See myself and consider myself of, that diplomatic response helps a lot, because then it's like, oh, I didn't even think about it that way. Chances are maybe the person on the other end that you're speaking to is also an immigrant, right? Or second generation or third generation.
In Toronto, it's like maybe 80% immigrants. So
I mean, like, let's be real. If you're not Native or Indigenous, you are an immigrant. Like,
let's call it facts. It's true.
It is what it is. Like, so I think the notion of getting around the question is very important, just to use it as turn it into a positive, in that, you also probably speak multiple languages. This is the thing. Us immigrants speak more than one language.
Yep.
Have conversations on a regular with people from different backgrounds and different cultures. And if I'm able to sit in the room with you and converse and, have this conversation and can still hold the conversation, I can do the same thing with the customers. So, yeah.
And that's very important to bring to light too, right? Like talking about like your agility, your experience, and how you're in the most diversity in the world. If you're in Toronto or the customers are diverse. And sometimes they wouldn't even ask it, they'll just think it the entire time. So I've always said to people, like, tackle the elephant in the room before you're even asked, right? Because sometimes people like, oh, you're looking at it, you're not saying it. Like you said, it's illegal, so they're going around it. And so it's always good to like just tackle it head on. And with that, before the interview, there's resumes that precede us. And you've talked about like not having locations on your resume. Mm-hmm. But you've probably gone through a lot of resumes and just thought this is a no-no. So especially like for newcomers, where it's like revealing, or even for people looking to get into sales, specifically like tech sales. What are the things you've seen on resumes that have just been easier to exclude people from, or like it's a blatant no-no?
Typos. Typos and grammar. I mean, like that, you've got to read over your resume multiple times. Make sure you don't have those mistakes that can be easily corrected before it hits my table, before it hits the hiring manager's table. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is also bringing in like colloquialism, right? So like slang words on resumes, I've seen a lot too, where I'm just like, what? This is not okay. This is not okay. Let's keep it very, very professional. That's another thing that I've seen a lot. I would say the other thing, what I can also talk about the things that I see on newcomers' resumes that I actually love. Because I think that's important too. Like the no-nos, hopefully we all know the no-nos already, which is the typical stuff. But the stuff that I see that really stands out, that I love to see, especially from newcomers, is not shying away from that international background, not shying away from it, talking about, diversing or conversing in multiple languages or multiple whatever it may be, having international experience in the sense that, you've traveled maybe many, many places and what you've learned from those many places. The personal portion of the resume, I'll tell you, is actually where I look first, because the recruiters are looking for the stereotypical things, right? Like, have they been in sales before? Do they have this experience, etc.? That's what they're looking for. I'm a bit different. I look outside of that box and I want to know who the person is behind the resume. I want to really understand, if I'm going to be working with this person, like, what do they do after 5 o'clock? I want to know. I want to know this person on a reel. And if I don't know the person on a reel, then what kind of real relationship do we have, as a manager to, individual contributor?
And so with that, what I hear is that about section about you, it's very important to not do the well-driven, organized, early, I write letters in English from the UK type of words, versus I'm a full-rounded person. I have this background, but professionally, but also on the side, I volunteered here and here and here, and these are my interests. Like, those are the kind of things you'll be looking for to make sure you're getting like a well-rounded person. Is that what I hear?
Definitely, because, at the end of the day, if you're applying for the role, chances are your resume looks similar to other people, right? The chances are they all, everybody has a similar kind of levels of experience, done the same kind of things, and their resumes are, maybe like a Google template. It is what it is, right? But when I see the ones that go above and beyond and say to themselves, okay, I'm going to put my personality onto this paper. So when the person is reading this, they're like, oh my goodness, like, Janie seems like a really fun person to have. I would love to at least bring her in for an interview. You know what I mean? I want to have a conversation. I want to get to know who this person is, right? And then, of course, personality on paper. Yeah.
I'm taking notes too. Honestly, thank you so much. And so I guess reflecting back on your experience, your background, your journey to where we are today, being a mom of 2 amazing kids, being a wife, being a sales leader, would you say that you are successful?
Well, for up until this stage, yes. But the bar is continually being risen. I'm continually to raise the bar, because we cannot stay stagnant. We cannot, like, I came to this country, like I'm sure many of you on here, with next to nothing or little or nothing, right? And it's like restarting, re-understanding, relearning. Like, prime example is even with French, I had to learn it again, because my French was from France or Switzerland, same idea, European essentially, versus Quebec French. Whole new ball game, whole new.
So, tu parles français?
Oui, je parle français.
Oh my
God! And so for me, it's about, yes, maybe you reach a certain goal. I have many, 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 many goals to get to the larger goal in life, which is being able to see success. I want to be able to, first of all, at any point in time, just say like, look, I'm actually taking this week off, which funnily enough, I did. I'm taking the next 2 days off. I'm going with my girlfriends. We're going to go to the wine country and we're going to, enjoy some time. We're going, about an hour east of here. But when I say success, we've got to look at it from professional, but also from personal, right? Has what I have done so far bettered the next step for my children? And that's, what I do every day. I want to make sure that anything that I'm doing, are my kids going to be more successful because of this step that I take? Are they going to have a better ladder because of the step that I take? Are they going to have a better life because of the step that I take? And I keep that always in the back of my mind. And that's why I say success, it's still, right? It continues. It never ends, I
actually learned something from my mentor in Kichi this week actually. And she said something about like success and pretty much like how we define it, but it's having insatiable curiosity about your potential.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're just like, I don't know if I can do it, I'm going to try. And I don't know if I can do it, I'm going to try. You keep pushing that barrier that you put for yourself, or that boundary, and you actually will keep having your success. A question just came up because I was going to round up, but a question just came up about your take on the number of pages you think a resume should be.
Oh my gosh. I feel like this is like a old question, because it's a difficult one to answer. Personally, I would say maximum 2 pages.
Maximum 2 pages.
Max. Best case is 1 page. Like, that's best case. Mm-hmm. But I'm okay with 2 pages. And the reason I say that is because don't go over 2 pages. Like, your education, what you did in high school at this point, that should be 1 line. Your high school diploma, what you got from high school, then literally it's enough space. Even you don't even need to put it on it. The assumption is you have that. The assumption is you have a high school diploma and potentially maybe some sort of college credit or some sort of education outside of that. But why do you need to take up space for that? Like that, they can ask you the question when you get into the room. The assumption is that you already have that. So maximum 2 pages.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, I wanted to get your take on mentorship versus and sponsorship. Like, for those who don't know the difference, a mentor is someone who pretty much just guides you in your career. A sponsor will take accountability and ownership and will speak for you in a room when you don't have influence over a conversation that will propel your career or move you a step further.
Mm-hmm.
However, we always hear people say, get a mentor, get a sponsor. And I'm like, how?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, am I just supposed to be like, hey, Sarita, mentor me? Because that would work. So how can people practically navigate finding a mentor and a sponsor for their careers?
Okay, good question. So with the mentorship, typically you can take advantage of any programs that are in place. A lot of people volunteer their time for mentorship programs. A lot of people there, I volunteer my time for mentorship programs. So you can typically find them through, Newcomers to Canada programs, etc. There are a bunch of them out there. I'm sure, you have the resources there. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is also to realize that when it comes to mentors, you may not even necessarily realize that somebody's a mentor, that somebody's playing a part as a mentor in your life.
Yes.
Right? Like, we talk about it a lot. Like, I consider my friends my mentors.
My girls are my mentors too, and they were all on this call, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes. Those are the people that, are pushing you. They're pushing you outside your comfort zone. They're saying to you, you got this, let's go. Why don't you try this? Let's do this, etc. So those are your mentors. So mentors are definitely much easier to come across, because you can even end up meeting somebody for coffee. Suddenly, your relationship continues to bloom. Again, relationships, right? That continues to bloom. Yeah. And then you realize down the road that actually I consider that person a mentor. So that one's an easy one to go about, and easy and practical to get there. With a sponsor now, you want to make sure that you are bringing a point of view and a perspective to the table when you come to these conversations. So I would say mentors and sponsors both stem from relationships, right? Because you've got to build something there first. You can't just randomly, I'm going to send a LinkedIn mail to Sarita and be like, hey, can you be my mentor and or sponsor? I'm probably going to ignore it. I'll just tell you that. But if you're proactively bringing a perspective and a point of view to somebody who potentially you'd want to be a sponsor, let's say you've met them before, maybe you've had 1 or 2 conversations with them, or maybe you haven't met them before and you're just starting to get your feelers out there. It's about bringing a point of view, saying, these are the things that, we experience. I'm curious to know if you see that in your space or in your world. How does that affect you? Would you be comfortable having a conversation with me around these things, right? And that is a prospecting tool that we use every day anyways. It's bringing a point of view about, what you see in the industry, what you see about, mentorship and sponsorship, what you see about it. And does that person agree or disagree, or would they have 5 minutes to just talk a little bit more about it? I'd love to pick your brains around it. That's when I've seen people reach out to me in that shape or form. That's how I found to be great. Yeah. But for me personally, my mentors and my sponsors, I am politely persistent.
Putting yourself up for adoption, politely
persistent, right? Because these people have a lot of things going on. There's a lot happening in their lives, as with everybody's lives. And it's so how do I make sure that I'm top of mind for this person? And how do I show them that I've taken their information and then done something with it and used it? Not just we had a great conversation and then nothing happened and then I did nothing and then bye, right? It's that person suggested I, join this group, or that I attend this event, or that I do this. And then now my next conversation with them is, oh, hey, I had a great time at that event, that whatever that you told me to go to. I learned X, Y, and Z. I also met this and this person, curious to know, great recommendation. Thanks so much for that. Is there anything else that, that you've done in your past that I could maybe...
They're like, oh, you're actually interested in listening to me, so I'm interested in giving you more stuff. Exactly. And then it can build that way. Okay. Exactly. No, thank you. I have learned so much. I'm taking notes, asking questions, taking notes, answering questions. I'm sure a lot of people have. I've been getting a bunch of comments on the chat as well, but I know you have to jet because you're out for a good weekend that I'm jealous about. But so do you have any final thoughts, final advice, if we could just follow you on LinkedIn, what that is?
Yeah. So definitely follow me on LinkedIn. Definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd like to see some, interesting approaches as to how you're going to do that. I don't want to see please add me on LinkedIn, right? Like send me a message. Let me know that you saw this. It's an easy way to do this is to just say, great. I was on the coffee chat or the wine conversation with Janie. I really appreciated my key takeaways were 1, 2, and 3, and would love to continue the conversation, right? Great example. I pretty much gave away like
you literally just gave the cheat sheet. You're like, you're gonna have an exam. Here's your cheat sheet.
Here's the cheat sheet, right? I would say, like as a closing remarks or just kind of generally, first of all is, there are a lot of, don't go through this alone. There are a lot of people out there that are newcomers. There are a lot of people out there that are in this space. Like, there are so many immigrants. We see the numbers. We see how Canada welcomes people here, Let's make sure that we are sharing these conversations with your friends, share the information with people, make sure to like and subscribe this page, right? I mean, like these are the little things that cost no money to you, right? But are going to be helpful for you in the long run. Get your circle of people. And one thing that I learned recently is always have your 10. So your 10 people that you know in the next 2 months that you want to connect with, and you go after those. Set yourself that goal. I have 10 people I want to connect with because I maybe want to get into tech. Maybe I want to get into sales. Maybe I want to get into this. I'm going to narrow it down to 5 or 10, right? Doesn't have to be 10. 5 or 10 people that you want to connect with, and you make that your goal for the next 2 months. How am I going to reach out to this person? What's interesting about this person? What perspective, point of view am I going to bring before having this conversation? And just know that chances are people will help. People are always usually are willing to help, as long as you're doing something in essentially in return, showing that you're interested. Here to support, here to help. If all else fails, send me a message on LinkedIn. Like, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Let me know about your experiences. I'm always curious to know about what people are experiencing and how they're doing it. But I think the big thing is know and understand that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I know my first years here were so difficult. Like, the struggle was real. I'm not gonna lie. You know what I mean? But now look where I'm at. And now I'm thinking to myself, what's next, right? The light just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the tunnel, right? So
thank you so much, Syreeta. I absolutely had a blast talking with you, as always, as you know, and I'm sure folks did too. It was a blessing having you on this channel. I'm going to leave you now so you can have a fun time weekend for the rest of the 2 days you have. And thank you. We'll continue this conversation soon. Folks, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you were saying?
Sorry?
No, you were saying something.
No, I was just saying thank you. I was just saying thank you so much. That I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Talk to you later, Syreeta.
Bye.
Well, people, this is awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I thoroughly appreciate you joining today. If this conversation was impactful for you, please give it a like, share, and subscribe. And if you're new on this channel, like I said, check out my other videos where I've done interviews, but also helped folks navigate studying, working, living in Canada as a newcomer, and just getting that bag. Until next time, I'll see you on the channel. Take it easy, people.
Do do do.